welcome on board, Jared. Welcome to this chat.
Good to be here.
Congrats on the Boston Celtics winning the title.
Yeah, it was fun.
How does it feel covering a team that won championship?
It's a cool experience. I mean, the Celtics get very close every single year. And frankly, this year wasn't even as fascinating as some of the past years where they didn't end up winning the championship, just because they dominated so easily, they won so convincingly. They were very rarely ever they weren't really trailing ever. I think they were tied at one point during the postseason, but there weren't very many moments where you were truly wondering if they could get the job done. So I think the season before was probably even more of a wild ride. This year there wasn't much tension, but it was really cool to see a truly great team up close, and to see so many people who I've known for a long time to see their dreams come true was obviously pretty wonderful.
It's always a special feeling. I mean, congrats once again. Okay, so talking about the Boston Celtics winning the NBA championship, indeed it's a special feeling, 18th title, and this is really a very important part of the Boston Celtics history. Now, what would you say made them pull this one? Because they have always been coming close, but this time they were able to achieve it. What would you say made this happen? What was the inspiration to this achievement by the Boston Celtics?
I think it starts first and foremost with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum really maturing and completing their game, really finding their way as leaders, being able to do everything on top of scoring that it takes to win a championship. I mean, at the end of the day, scoring is important, but teams with great offenses that don't move the ball, that don't play in transition, that don't defend, they're not really going to win. You need to do both. And both of those guys, I think, took that really seriously. And they learned from all the times they came up short how important it was that they did every single thing in the game at a high level. And to their credit, they do everything. Like, on both sides of the ball, both of those guys can do pretty much everything, and they do it effectively. And so them becoming balanced players gave the Celtics a foundation they could build off of, and that allowed them to bring in Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, Derek White, a bunch of players who aren't elite on-ball players, but can do a little bit of everything very well. And the Celtics never needed one guy that could dominate at the level of a Luka Doncic or a Nikola Jokic or a Giannis Antetokounmpo. They were able to get a bunch of guys that were very, very good, and Tatum and Brown are great players to maybe that tier right below what those guys can do offensively. But because they're also great defenders, that makes them effective enough to win a championship. And so between all those players coming together at the right moment of their careers, Joe Mazzulla really finding his voice as a coach and having enough time to build a team that he really wanted, everything just came together at the right time. And really in the NBA, winning a championship often comes down to the timing of everybody on your team and staying healthy, and the Celtics had that.
Okay, now one part of the Celtics team that people talk about is the shooting. That every starter can shoot the ball, and it even makes it more difficult for their opponent to defend them. Because if you're defending Tatum, you have to defend Jalen. Defending Jalen, you also have to defend Drew Holiday because he can catch those buckets. Would you say that this part of the Celtics game really played a big role in the title run?
Yeah, I mean, that's why they won the championship. It wasn't just that they're good shooters, it's that they committed to taking threes. And, if you ask the Celtics all the time about, hey, you guys take a ton of threes, they always reject that notion, and they say, it's not that we take a ton of threes, we just make the right reads over and over again. And so, their commitment to every team in the NBA is trying to take 3-pointers. Everybody knows that. They have both the personnel everywhere so that everyone's able to take threes. So it's as the opposing defense can't be we're going to force this guy to score in the paint or try to beat us one-on-one. They'll move the ball and find an open shooter. They're really good at that. And then also, Joe Mazzulla all the time talks about what he calls 3-point variance, shot margin, which is the number of attempts that you have relative to your opponent. And the Celtics were always they were trying to take like double-digit number more threes than their opponent. And you saw, especially in that Dallas series, the first few games they were winning, they were taking like 10 to 15 more three-pointers than Dallas in those games. And so no matter how good Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving were scoring the ball in the paint, the Celtics were taking enough threes that they would catch up and they would eventually pull away because of just the efficiency of the offense that they're choosing.
Okay, that's really good. Now let's talk about the coach. Joe Mazzulla took over from Ime Udoka. A friend of mine, Anthony Kem, is a basketball scout. He mentioned that whatever achievement Joe Mazzulla is having right now was started by Ime Udoka. Would you subscribe to that?
Yeah, Ime Udoka was a very necessary moment in time for the Celtics franchise. They needed a kick in the butt. He came in after Brad Stevens moved to the front office, and he just called everybody out on their BS. He made sure he really held guys accountable. He was really tough, and he wasn't afraid to hold them accountable. And that really helped guys like Jalen and Jason turn the corner in their careers. At the beginning of that season, everyone probably remembers that follows the Celtics, Marcus Smart said that Jalen and Jason, every team knows that they're not going to pass the ball in crunch time, and it's easier to stop them because they know what's happening, and that those guys need to continue to grow as playmakers. And an important thing to understand is people just remember the quote from Marcus saying they don't want to pass the ball, but the full quote was him saying, we're teaching them how to become playmakers. They're trying to become playmakers, but they have to do it. It wasn't like these guys suck. It was like they need to really, really take seriously improving in this way. And once they do that, it'll open everything up. And that they needed that jolt, and Marcus Smart gave them that. Ime Udoka gave them that. Al Horford has always been really good about leading by example. They needed that moment and the struggles they went through earlier in that year to really take off later that year, and then they ended up coming just short of a championship. And then Joe Mazzulla was like a great guy to come in and replace them, because Mazzulla has a different approach, and he's really good at criticizing guys and and being tough on them, but he also does a lot of stuff to make things different, interesting, fun. He has a very open-minded approach to how things are done, and he's extremely engaging and energetic in a different way. And so I think Udoka was, if they had just hired Joe Mazzulla straight up after Brad Stevens, who knows if they would have had like all the kind of like breakthroughs that they had, just because I think maybe Udoka's style was like a little bit different. But once that happened, and maybe Joe could have pulled it off, because Joe is really good at holding guys accountable, and he's really good at teaching. But once they had that breakthrough, Joe was handed a team that it took a while, but was ready to play the way that he wanted them to play. And the front office designed a team that allowed Joe to really kind of use his approach of coaching and basketball to the maximum. And Joe has turned into one of the best coaches in the NBA, and he had an incredible season.
Oh, pretty good. Now let's talk about Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum had a fantastic year, regardless. What do you think about Jason Tatum? Where would you rank him in terms of the NBA all-time great? Because I've seen a lot of narrative being pushed around. Tatum will be in the same bracket with Bron, rest in peace Kobe, and all of that. I don't know. What do you think about all of these takes flying left, right, and center? What do you think about that?
I mean, listen, I thought Tatum was going to be an MVP caliber player from early in his career, but like, let's slow down on those comparisons. He's early in his career. He's only 26. The path that he's on a path to being one of the all-time greats, but not like he's not on that like LeBron level path. And like Kobe was kind of more ready early in his career. Now Tatum is growing at a rate that he could maybe end up getting towards the territory of Kobe's ability. That's certainly possible. But Kobe won 5 championships. And Kobe also went through some big ups and downs in his career. And frankly, I think Tatum is way ahead of where Kobe was as far as maturing his game and appreciating being a team player. I think it took Kobe longer to get to that point. And then once they got Pau Gasol, it really kind of clicked for him. But Kobe went through some really rough years where he was scoring 35 points a game, but they were a terrible team and he was a selfish player. Jason, I think, learned those lessons early. He's become a much better team player and playmaker than maybe anyone unexpected. And as far as like players that came into the NBA as like really just scorers, he has grown into a playmaker at a rate that I think is very rare. And I don't think there's a lot of players that have come into the league with his type of game and have evolved into the type of game he's developing. But he has to shoot better. Like, he shot terribly this season and never got better. And if he goes back to shooting in like the high 30% area from 3 points, he's going to be the MVP of the league. He's going to be scoring 30 a night on top of getting 5 assists a game. Like, then at that point he's getting into that territory, and maybe he'll get there. But you know what? He's a great player. He's one of the best players in the NBA. He's probably, you could argue, he's a top 5 player. There's probably 7 guys you could say are top 5 players right now, but he's a first team All NBA player. There's no question about it. He's one of the best. He's proven that he can be the focal point of a championship team. And as important as Jaylen Brown is to this team, and I don't really, they need both Jaylen and Jason. They complement each other so well. They really fill in each other's gaps of their talents. But Tatum is the one that generally has the ball in his hands most of the time. He's a better playmaker, although Jaylen made huge progress as a playmaker this year, and that was a huge reason why he became Finals MVP and why they won a championship. But Jason is like becoming one of the best wing playmakers in the NBA. He's not like Luka, who's like one of the best point guards we've ever seen, but as far as a wing, he's definitely become one of the best. He's done a lot of a lot of what Kawhi Leonard did when he became a great player and eventually led a champion. And Tatum's not quite that defender. I mean, Kawhi at his best was one of the best defenders in the NBA. But as far as an offensive player, he honestly might be even better than Kawhi at his peak at this point, because he has a little bit more versatility to his game. I think he might be even a better playmaker at this point. But if he wants to get to that level that Kawhi was at, when like Kawhi was like right there for winning the MVP a few years ago, there's still a little bit more room to go. And I think it's getting his shooting consistency back on track is probably the main place.
Okay, now just to make it as quick as possible before I let you go, just 1 or 2 more questions. Let's talk about JJ Redick. This has had Boston Celtics. I want to get your view on JJ Redick being the coach of the Lakers. No experience, no professional experience as a coach with any NBA team, but there's always going to be a first time. But luckily for him, his first time is with the Lakers. What do you think about JJ Redick being appointed the head coach of the Lakers?
Well, I love it because you look at who else was available, and there wasn't anybody else that really inspired a ton of confidence. Somebody that like has good experience winning. And so I really like it because, listen, like we all know JJ has a great basketball mind, and there's a lot of former players that know the game really well. JJ has a truly great basketball mind. It's very apparent. He knows the ins and outs of everything from an X's and O's standpoint to a mentality standpoint. I think that's pretty apparent. And it'll probably take him some time to grow into the role. And another big thing is, presuming LeBron James stays, that LeBron James likes him. And so the big thing that they need in LA is a coach that LeBron respects, a coach that LeBron will empower. And that's like, because LA's whole thing, I mean, obviously, I don't think they have the talent to win a championship at this point. We'll see if they can trade for like DeJounte Murray or something like that. But they have enough talent that, and LeBron is still, I think, good enough, and Anthony Davis is still, I think, good enough that they could be contenders if they have great chemistry. And the chemistry was just not that good. The belief in the coach was just not good last year, and there was a lot of cracks in that throughout the season. If they have a team that's like truly playing for their coach and they're really connected the way that like Boston was this year, they have a chance to, because the Western Conference is so crowded, they have a chance to make some noise. But they don't have the talent depth anymore to compete with some of these other teams out there. It'd be really interesting to see what LeBron could do this year, because LeBron is 22 years into the NBA, and he's slowed down. It's very apparent. He can't finish at the level he used to, but he tends to, and he doesn't defend that often. Like when he wants to, he can. But like he was like an all-time great defender when he was younger. He's not that player anymore. But like there's still enough there that he could win. He can at least make a run in the playoffs. I don't know about winning a championship, but they have enough that if JJ Redick really hits, he really is in control. LeBron and AD really buy into what he's doing and they stay healthy, sure, the Lakers have a chance, if they can make a good move here in the offseason, they have a chance to be a good team again and like make some noise in the West. But the West is just so loaded and crowded.
Yeah, very loaded, no doubt about that. Okay, lastly, do you know Farouk Aminu?
Yeah. Not personally, but yeah, he was a good player. I really liked him when he was in the NBA.
Okay, so what did you like about his game when he was in the NBA?
I mean, he had super long arms and was such a versatile defender. I think he was a little bit ahead of his time as far as like the value of his defensive versatility. I think if he was in the NBA nowadays, he would be valued a lot more. He's not like Mikal Bridges, but similar frame, similar defensive versatility. But he obviously couldn't handle the ball and shoot at that level. But I always really enjoyed watching him play because he was really tough. He was really committed on both ends of the floor, and even though I think he was fairly limited offensively, I felt like he kind of got the most out of his game that he could have, and he was always one of my favorite like kind of defensive role playing wings in the NBA.
Right, thank you very much. Always a nice time having you talk about basketball with me.
Hey man, it's always great to talk to you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right.